Thank you, everyone. So this is session 4. Topic is preventing the unthinkable, taking action to prevent catastrophe. So catastrophic incidents have lasting impacts to communities and remind everyone why damage prevention must be taken very seriously. Many accidents are ultimately caused by lack of communications between various parties. Why is communication still a problem in 2025? Anyone want to jump in here?
I personally believe that it's we're not having pre-con meetings. There's no communication between the owner-operators, construction companies, the locators. All of these things are extremely valuable so that we can come up with a game plan to help construction projects flow smoothly, no time delays, and hopefully to prevent damages.
I think our organizations individually sometimes have competing priorities. If we all had that priority, especially specifically back to the catastrophic events, making sure that we prevent incidents. So to discuss, damage prevention, and oftentimes understanding those challenges that each of us face that might prevent sometimes timely communication or enough information to give you the best decision to make before you might determine to stick a shovel in the ground. So I think those competing priorities, which sometimes don't provide enough information or as timely or as coordinated to get the best result for each of those stakeholder groups, can sometimes lead to those errors.
It's the facility owners need to do a better job in educating the excavators. Okay. Having worked for 30 plus years in utilities as large and diverse as all, say, like People's Gas in Chicago, it's difficult to believe, but it is the case that the gas infrastructure in Chicago is actually older than the sewer, and the sanitary sewer is for Chicago. More than 100 years, they're still retiring mains from the time of the Lincoln presidency. Okay, so the excavators need to be educated that as much as 811 is out there, as much as locators are out there, the work volumes, that's set aside. Even if that got resolved, we have a huge amount of old infrastructure that frankly, not even utility owners know where it is. Mapping wasn't even a part of it. GIS systems, forget about it. So you have to understand that when you're digging out there and you come across something that you don't know what it is, you can't assume it's abandoned. Okay? You have to reach out to the utility and various utilities and try to figure out what it is that you're dealing with that you've uncovered.
Especially when it comes to fiber optic, there's so many competing companies out here that don't want to release that information as to where their next build is going to be because of the competition that's involved. If we can get past that would help with the communication as far as getting timely locates and getting people staffed up for it.
Absolutely. I agree with Saul. I believe that utility operators, owner operators taking the lead on helping contractors prevent damages. I think that we need, as facility owner operators, we need to be more involved. And I've said it 100 times. It's our priority to ensure that you're successful in not damaging a natural gas facility. We need to take the lead on helping you establish your damage prevention programs, safe excavation programs. Because at the end of the day, it's about safety. It's about your safety, our safety, and the safety of the communities that we serve. That's paramount. So we have to take the lead on that. The days of owner-operators and contractors being at odds and not working together have to be done. We have to bridge that gap, and we have to work together. Communication is 100% what it takes. You have to do it.
In the prior panel, where one of the panelists brought up at Missouri 811, we try to define ourselves or show ourselves as the hub of damage prevention. And getting down into the weeds, it is more productive to get down into the weeds of communication. Where are the specific points where communication drops? But it also, I think it helps us to back up and look at the big picture and go back to day one at the docudrama. And one of the first responses that came from the Fire Marshal, Tim Bean, and from myself is to take your time and perform the right steps. And the communication gets used as a very large word to kind of cover everything. And we can get to the very specific components of communication, but generally, as we're all trying to do the job, trying to get the project done, trying to get the notifications out, taking the time to make sure that we are talking with each other completely. Much in the same aspect, we're in that matter of risk mitigation. So the training, that's part of the communication. Do you actually go through training? Do you repeat the training? And the training may feel redundant, but it's building that muscle memory on how you do things. Communication comes in the form of a one-call ticket. Do we have the right information on that ticket that's needed? Communication comes in the form of maps. Are the maps accurate? Are the maps up to date? Are the maps being shared? But there's still that risk mitigation in the big picture of as humans. It's not strictly owned by the damage prevention industry, excavation, utilities. We as humans, how many of you drive 70 mile an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone? And you're saying, yeah, it'll probably be okay. You're doing some risk mitigation in our day-to-day as we try to get in our work, we do that subconscious risk mitigation. So, well, it'll be okay. And then the accident happens. So there's a large picture to the communication, and I really applaud the conversations where we get down to the specifics of where a communication should generate from and be transmitted to.
Yeah, and to Mr. Norton's point, I think oftentimes communication is just too big an overarching word. I like to lean a little more on coordination. Just simply communicating what's been done or what needs to get done oftentimes doesn't prevent the event. It's making sure that we're actively coordinating and engaged with one another, not simply sharing information, but ensuring that the information that's provided is understood, that we're working within the confines of that communication, because oftentimes work might extend beyond, or people end up making business decisions about safety to say, well, I've got to get this done by the end of the day. Do we go too far, like that speeding scenario, to say, did I push it too far beyond my level of coordination and communication, which could lead to an incident? Oftentimes, again, we don't want to cause delays, and then that results in people having to make business decisions about their work and how they proceed going forward.
So yeah, we can talk, but was the talk productive?
Correct.
Did we cover the proper subjects? And that's where take your time, follow the right task, keeps our conversation or communication on task.
And at the end of the day, I'm getting to the realization that we should have a trade-in program where a contractor brings in a backhoe and they get a vacuum excavator as an exchange, because that really should be, and it's becoming, that's something that I actually see as a positive future that will solve a lot of problems. It's becoming the excavation method of choice for all utilities, regardless of where you are. Yes, directional boring is out there, but there is an application for vacuum excavation. Everything should be daylighted. Is the method that it's getting to be probably preferred by utilities, preferred by municipalities, by facility owners. And so in that sense, I'm actually positive that this method of excavation, soft excavation that doesn't cause minimal damage, regardless of what the situation is underground, is getting to be the digging of choice.
So I like Gerald's coordination versus communication. Are there enough coordination, features at the Missouri 811 and in the system? For example, when I order something from Amazon, right, they deliver it, and then the delivery person takes a photo of it, And if I wanted to see, okay, where is it? I can't find it. I go to Amazon app or Amazon.com and I can see, oh, there's a photo of the box on my, on my porch, and maybe it fell down. I don't get a text from some random number saying, oh, I delivered it, here's your box, right? It's inside the system. So are there enough features of, let's keep it Missouri 811, but I suspect this applies to other 811s as well, in the system, or are people doing what they can outside of the system to coordinate, to communicate right now?
Yeah, there is. Within Missouri 811 system, we have the ability for an excavator to add a photo of where he wants marked, right? As it's talked in the last session, we got a new rollout that we're getting ready to push where the excavator can communicate with the utility. He can click on who he wants to communicate, date and time stamps it, and that opportunity is going to be there shortly.
I think when we're talking about communication, I'm beginning to sense that we're conflating communication with education. All these great tools, but how are we getting that out to the people, which is the lack of communication. But like Randy said, communication comes in all forms. I think we're missing it from the very beginning, which is the education piece. Let's get started quickly. Let's get started early. Train these guys, women, men, everybody what's going on, and then retrain from there. Because, like you said, 811's coming out with some awesome features, but they're worthless unless people know about them and know how to use them.
And I agree with that. Education is where it's at. The staff at 811, we devote a lot of time every day educating people on how to properly use the 811 system. Teach them about the apps to do it from their phone. They can use their app on their phone and upload the photos right from their phone straight to the ticket. We spend time just teaching them everything about the 811 ticket, using the right tools within the system to get a better locate. You can preach it, and bring them to the water, but to make them drink it sometimes, it's a little difficult, right? So there's that struggle that you have there. Everybody, when we're sitting in a room like this, everybody's like, yes, I want training. And when you call to set it up, we ain't got time. We got a lot of work to do.
And definitely on the concept of features, like, well, for example, we've had what we've called web mapping service. We're going to rename it, because if I say web mapping service, you go, what's that? We're going to call it locator mapping service. And what that is the utility can put their GIS mapping onto that ticket for their locator to see, and you can scroll it. That's a communication. We're relaying more information to make it more precise, more obtainable to who's using it. We're also at the same time about to turn the switch on of enhanced positive response. Enhanced positive response is now where the excavator can see that map, but they're looking at it within the scope of their work. They're not able to scroll all the way around it. So those are like features that communicate more and provide more coordination. How it gets used, it may be a different story. But then there's also another feature we're looking at. It's called ticket talk. And if you could imagine almost instant messaging as the excavator, instant message the utility, or the utility instant message the excavator. Right now on our system, we have a mandatory telephone number. It's supposed to be an on-site number for the excavator. Most of the times it's not on site, or I'll say too frequently it's not on site, but there's no number for the utility. And so opening up that channel, but here's where I'm going with it. We're looking at this feature, but every time you create a new tool, you're likely to create about 3 more problems. So now if I give you ticket talk and you're instant messaging and you can go, hey, you need to get down here and locate this. You didn't mark it. instead of doing the incorrect locate. Now the system's being bypassed, and the mechanism which starts to come back onto the legal system that's supposed to be the step to communicating, starting to get bypassed, and it's getting grayer. So the use of tools is definitely necessary, but I come back to like what you're talking about. Everybody's got to know how that tool is supposed to work and where it's at.
I think also with regard to features, it used to be I could go out and I could shake your hand, we have an agreement, this is what we're gonna end up doing, and that's how it got done. Until you get burned the third, fourth, fifth time, and then you understand that can't happen anymore. With the advent of how much work's going on, the sheer volume of some of this work, with the potential for litigation, regulatory, and the need to have to upload all that information, I think about where we're at today versus then, and yeah, we have so many more mechanisms again to inform people of maybe where things are at. I oftentimes wonder if we lean on that as the end product as opposed to your point, which would be we're still lacking how do we discuss or get through that to the completion of that project. You've notified me, you've said here's where it's going, but there could be a lot of steps in between by the time we get to completion. What's the mechanisms that we can put in place? Enhanced electronic positive response is a good one when you can provide periodic updates. Providing photos, status, our own organization had to come up with its own tool, Dig Check Pro, to offer up to excavators in absence of some of that information to fill that gap, to say, here's where we're at. To Randy's point, an ability to say, I need to talk to your locator right now, we're out here, we can't find this utility. That communication sometimes now is left to those mechanisms, and if not in place, they're not taking place in the field. You oftentimes won't have the phone number of a locator. You might have the phone number of a supervisor or somebody else. But we've kind of lost that, and to some degree, the handshake agreement doesn't really have a whole lot of room today with where we're at, but we need more, I think, even where we're at with all the technology. We still continue to need more of that back and forth with those excavators to get to that point of coordination. So if they have a question, they have a problem, that can get addressed right away. You can inform the utility that you've got a critical facility out there. And to the education piece, oftentimes that information gets to the people that need it the least. This group is not the group that we need to worry about educating. So how do you also target those folks to say the folks that are least utilizing those tools and need it the most? How do we get to some of those folks? I'm sure that in the room we have some of the best premier excavators, in the state, and those folks aren't those problems. They still might have events, but they're already working with the tools to achieve. How do we also then use that information, use that experience to grow the ability for the call centers to get to those folks that might not be using it? But I agree with you, Jemmy, that there's got to be more of information shared regarding this is the product of your notification. It might not be yet what you want. There could be that delay, but nonetheless, you're informed with where the process is and where it stands, and the ability to communicate with those folks to prevent said potential catastrophic incident.
And to bring it back home to the concept of a catastrophic incident. When the 2025 law changes in Missouri came to place, I guarantee you I had no less than I don't know how many reporters, TV reporters, ask me the question, with these law changes, will these catastrophic events stop? No. A law change doesn't guarantee that. Even a new tool, a new coordination tool doesn't guarantee that, but each one of these steps and components fine tunes it a little bit more, that hopefully that we're paying attention to the steps we need to take, and it's going to mitigate, it's going to minimize that risk of very bad news. It's just like I take it back to my speeding example. If I put the 50 mile an hour speed limit sign on the road every 20 feet, is that still going to make you go slower? Probably not. It still comes down to paying attention, taking the steps, taking your time, and making sure that we are going through our processes.
And tonight we're having a conversation about a good practice that Illinois has, which is to do a safety sweep by the excavator before work starts. And it's more than just the visual, okay? I think just about every sophisticated excavator knows when to recognize that something wasn't marked. You see a pedestal, there are no markings coming out of it, yes, you could call the electric company. But beyond that, stuff that wasn't marked, usually marks, but it doesn't guarantee that they're accurate or that they were based on an electronic locator. It might have been done off maps. But the practice is not only to do the visual sweep, but to have excavators sophisticated enough that almost, I wouldn't call them locators just yet, but at least be able to use an instrument to detect that there is something there. I need to stop, I need to make a call, I don't know what it is. Before I start digging, I gotta figure out what it is that I'm getting here that I have no marks for. And really that is, we can have the best processes in the world.
And that's
But once we get to the excavation point, those practices need to also happen.
Right, the Missouri 811, we're getting deeper into our data, not, really interpreting it. And we find that most of the damages in Missouri occur on day one, which it doesn't give absolute proof, but it's like, that's an indicator that maybe there's not a pre-scan going on. That we're just like, okay, here, marks are on the ground, let's go. So, not saying that it's not, but it's kind of an
It's interesting.
indicator that shows a lot of the damages occur on day one.
I think to Mr. Lopez's point also, I think from, oftentimes those different stakeholder groups might lack the information of the others' issues. So to the point made, oftentimes when we get the chance to talk to excavators as a locator, I want to talk to them about the error likely situations. If something's going to go wrong, where's it going to go wrong? It's going to be near a termination point, be it at a pole, a transformer, a pedestal. It's going to be when lines come together. It's going to be when it's on a bend, to try and educate people. If something's going to go wrong, this is where you can anticipate that's going to take place. Here's how you might take extra care at those locations. Also educating to, hey, if you see that thing sticking up out of the ground and there's not something going to it, maybe it's a good time to make a call. By the way, it might not even be a public utility. That doesn't mean that the private gas line running to the garage can't kill you just the same, or the electric line. So making people understand those error likely situations as well. Not just educating on, hey, here's how we turn in your ticket, here's how you use the processes, but to the point of when we do get to the field, to avoid the event, the last line of defense. Do I really have someone out there that understands how to identify if something could go wrong? Or am I just tunnel vision and focused on, I just gotta get the job done? And oftentimes when we do go to a damage investigation where something might not be marked, it could be, there's something right there. If we could just take in the moment to recognize, why wouldn't there be some paint there? And by the way, I would also argue locators make the same mistakes. How did you walk right by that thing and not see it standing right there? So trying to educate people on those shared stakeholder risks that you might not have that understanding of. For example, when it gets to wintertime and we have sub-freezing temperatures, you gotta make locators understand, hey, 18, 24 inches might be your legal corridor. But how about the poor guy that's holding a pickaxe to try and get through 18 inches of frost? He's not gonna be able to take the same care around your locate that he might if it was 75 degrees outside and loose soil. So taking the extra added consideration to understand the shared stakeholders' risk and how can I help mitigate that by understanding each other's risk.
So
That's interesting that what you guys are finding is that first day, at least there's an indication that it could be the first day is the incident, right? And then the shared responsibility of risk, all of that, if we were to think linearly, right? If we have a first day incident, and that seems to be what the data is starting to show.
Some of them even before the first day.
Even before the first day. And then you even mentioned that, locators are humans too. They'll walk right by something and not see something. Maybe something's mismarked, which leads to a first day incident. My question would be, and to Saul's point too, why have we not added hydrovac onto an 811 system to verify the marks that are put on the ground or are not put on the ground? if we're gonna share risk, then I think utility owners should start thinking about actually sharing that risk with their contractors, because if a contractor hits something, it's on them, it's not on the utility owner. I don't see that as being shared. And if a utility owner has locators that are maybe hired out as third party, I mean, you guys are only as good as what those locators are, and if they don't locate properly, the contractor doesn't share that responsibility with you if they hit it 2 foot outside the line or whatever.
That's right.
So I don't see a lot of shared going on, and I think that would be
And maybe, following up on Gerald's comment, like, are you asking other stakeholders to double check your job? Like,
No.
So you go out, you're a contract locator, you go out, you locate, and then you're like, oh, by the way, before you guys do anything, you should double check our job and just make sure everything's cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, and the answer is no. First of all, I might locate for the utility operators that I'm contracted with, but that's just that utility. My point would be in the interest of safety, in the interest of public safety, in the interest of safety for the person who's holding the shovel. Last line of defense would be, are there things that you could cue in or identify that further raise the element of, I'm just not ready yet? And it might not be, for example, it might not be a locator issue. It could be a private facility issue. It could be a utility operator that might not have yet responded, whatever the case may be. But agreed, the utility operator and or said contractor owns that risk of ensuring that it's completed. My point is, just as I said for my own folks, understanding what those potential error likely situations are and to simply guard against those. I think we're all obligated, and we all own our own personal safety. What obligation do you have to educate yourself, your team, your crew, your company, to say, how might we prevent, regardless of the operator? It could be traffic, but those are all still risks. How do I mitigate those factors?
I would not, in the position of a locator, I hate to say I need somebody to check my work. As a facility owner, I do. Okay, because it's a shared responsibility, it's an issue of safety. Okay. The guy that is out there that is going to get on that backhoe or on that drilling machine, they are putting their life in danger. Okay, they should realize that they own their safety. No matter, don't rely on the 811 system to have done everything perfect for you. Don't rely on the utility owner, on the locator to have laid out everything perfect for you, because at the end of the day, you own your own safety. And yes, you may cause a minor damage, nick a steel line that you say, oh, that's nothing, I'll, put some electric tape on it and it'll be good, and walk away from it. But that thing is going to be a latent danger. I call them, it's a time bomb. It's a thing that will eventually let go, and maybe you may not be around by then, but in time, it will corrode, it will let go. A gas line that is put through a sewer lateral, in time, will clog that sewer lateral. Somebody will come, put a jetter, put a rod through it, and, it's going to cause a catastrophe. So everybody has to do their job, and we have to check on each other to make sure that not only for the public, for our own personal safety, everybody is getting everything done out there. And even after you've done all of those things, again, I'll say gas utilities, electric utilities have facilities out there that they themselves don't know that they are there.
Well, to go back to your earlier question regarding the checking up on, real world example could be I'm digging down as an excavator to daylight what says 6-inch steel gas line. I daylight the top of a 4-inch PVC, and I think, oh, it's right under the mark, I've got it. Guy comes out, puts that backhoe in the ground, and all of a sudden I'm in a 6-inch steel main. Did he see, or did he get what was expected? Were you expecting a line, or were you expecting a 6-inch steel? And did you go take the additional step to confirm that versus go with that first piece of information? Oftentimes we want to say, I just want to confirm what I should already know, and then I can move on. as opposed to, is that really what I'm expected to find as the result? Challenge that to make sure that you're confident, infinitely confident in the decision you've made, and you can move forward for you and others.
So, Randy, I want to go back to something you said, which I think gets at the heart of kind of safety. You said, how many drives 70 in a 60 zone, right? Is the core kind of issue that, fortunately, these catastrophic safety incidents are relatively rare and long time between them, that we get complacent, right? Like, oh, and I admit I did this driving here. I'm like, oh, speed limit is X. I'll set cruise control to X plus 9, right? I mean, I'm not the only guy here who did that, right? I'll set it to X plus 9 because no cop would stop me for that, and it's safe enough, right? Even though I know going to plus 9, there's some incremental risk, but I'm like, yeah, I haven't gotten into a catastrophic accident yet, so it's probably okay. So is that part of it, in that the catastrophic incidents, the topic here, are fortunately so rare that we're lulled into this complacency?
Yeah, so Six Sigma, right? So you're right. And the problem is, if you as an individual take it upon yourself to try and catch the singular error out of all the work that you do, error rates are so small, you're going to gloss over it. You're trying to find already. So if you as an organization, you run a damage rate of 1 in 10,000 tickets, and if you tried to imagine, well, I've got an error rate of 1 in 10,000, you don't. That's the discoverable. But that does lull you into false positive reinforcement that every time I've gone out and done the job, I've gotten away with it. I got away with it this time. I get away with it the next time. Is 1 in 10,000 worth blowing up a house? So we do have to rely on the processes, the training, the proper execution to make sure that we catch those infinitely small error rates that on your own, you're not going to find. And that is what causes those catastrophic error rates, because then after the fact, then it's always post-mortem, right? Now let me go back and find out all the things that you've done over the last year, and then I can find, oh, wait a minute, here were all these indicators, or maybe lack thereof, where that could have been discoverable, but because we've relied on someone who's just been there a while, or that guy's been there forever, he knows how to do that, that complacency and that inability to catch that one in whatever that error rate is what's going to leave you exposed for that catastrophic.
So if hydrovac is the safest form of excavation, I'll go back to this. And if we are dealing with companies with an error rate of 10,000, like you say, I would say that's pretty good. But I would also say you're towing a fine line, because to your point, you're right there. Like we're looking at discoverables, like you said. Are we being safe, or are we being lucky?
Right. Agreed.
So if we can't isolate, or if we can't get rid of the 1 in 10,000, even with companies that are doing a great job, because of complacency, why wouldn't we add hydrovac into the one call system? It's already done for them. Boom.
Randy, you said something else that was interesting. You said, are the maps being shared? Right. So are the maps being shared in Missouri, and shared enough to improve damage prevention?
Maps are being shared. No, they're not being shared enough. We're definitely working in the direction to improve that. And of course, it's not enough to just share a map. Map's got to be accurate. And then there again, we're opening up yet another parameter of human error. Is that map going to be spot on? So there's that opens up another area of like communication, but a potential failure thing is something that needs to be cross-referenced. yes, we're going to be looking in Missouri to sharing maps within the ticketing system. We've always had the ability within the system that you can share the map, but whether it's actually done, Charlotte, you may have been just with those, how frequently maps are really shares.
Not very often. We very seldom do we see an excavator walking around out here if we're out on a job site visit, walking around with a map of all the utilities, you know? It just doesn't happen.
Do they ask for it? Have you ever had a?
We do have some that ask for it. Does the utility provide it? Most of them don't, you know, because they don't want to release that information.
Why not?
Just that.
Well, so there's a couple reasons. And if we're having an honest conversation about facility maps and records for utilities, you can't guarantee that it's 100% accurate. So if you release a map or a facility record to someone and there are errors on it, you're automatically setting them up for failure. You know, that's one of the biggest reasons there is hesitation in my field for releasing those.
Are you setting them up for failure, or are you opening yourself up for liability?
It's both. I mean, you know, one's going to lead to the other. You know, so you don't want to give someone bad information because then that's going to lead to catastrophe.
And you have to understand what you're doing, so you have to educate them what it is that they're actually seeing. I have a certain degree of confidence for a gas record because the gas industry has a long tradition of putting together good maps. That's not so in the electric side. If I see a map released from the electric side, to me, it's just a schematic. It's not worth anything that I'm going to measure, dig, design around, because it just tells me that from that drop, it goes to this transformer, and then it goes to these other pedestals, and it's just a dashed line. It has no tie to a physical location whatsoever.
Just a reference
So you
point.
have to understand what it is that you're getting. You could get all the maps in the world.
So,
But
How
even
good
like
are
the,
they? What good are they for what your purpose is?
so you're protecting the recipients because they may not understand what they're getting?
Yeah, so, you know, when I was in charge of that process, we stamped those maps. Yes, we released the maps, but we stamped them all over the place, not to any scale, not to be used for construction. Locates are required, and
Yep.
yada, yada.
And that's the risk. You know, when you release a facility record to somebody, how are they going to utilize that information? Is that going to be what they use in lieu of locates? Are they going to use this information correctly? And also, who are you releasing it to? You know, the information we will release will be highly redacted for safety reasons. You can't release a full facility record that shows critical valves, critical above ground systems, because you don't know what somebody's intentions are all the time, you know.
I think the alternative, though, for a lot of those events where these catastrophic failures occur, large scale type design type work. So in areas where you would have, say, design or a SUE requirement, we do have areas of the country where that has to take place. We have certain projects, even in Illinois, where if it's an IDOT project, there is a SUE design level map that can be provided, by the way, both to locator and to excavator. So you might not have the facility record, but you've got the actual design SUE document that does provide excavators with the entirety of that information. So again, that design and planning process has to happen way in advance of your excavation. So from a standpoint of, hey, I got to go out there in 3 days to get my job done, does it apply there? No. But with the planning and coordination for some of these larger projects where planning and design could be an element of your job, certainly that information could be made available without having to obtain said utility map.
I think one thing that comes to mind with regards to maps is I would not think that the map would necessarily ever be intended to replace the mark, but it could be used as another layer of cross-checking the mark.
Yep,
So
agreed.
if there's a blue line on the north side of the road, but the map shows that the water main is on the south side of the road, there's yet another component that goes, wait a minute, something's not kosher here, let's check this out.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
It ties into sharing maps, checking marks, doing a safety sweep. These are layers of redundancy in safety, okay? Years ago, I used to work on aircraft, all right? Whenever you're installing electronic systems on an aircraft, it's checked 3 times. It's checked by you, it's checked by a lead, it's checked by an inspector. You wouldn't want an aircraft to be released with no safety checks, would you? You know, you wouldn't want somebody digging around hydrocarbon lines, natural gas lines, without somebody checking, you know, multiple times to make sure that we're doing everything we can in the guise of safety. You know, you want to have those redundancies because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about safety. It's getting everybody home safe.
So let's follow up on that, Dustin. What if we passed a law in this industry, like there are several other industries in the U.S. that have what they call safe harbor laws, right? Like if you do this or if you share this information with goodwill, you have absolute immunity. So let's say we pass a law that says, okay, facility owners have to share their data, and whatever they share, they have absolute immunity against all claims. And by doing that, would that help? I mean, forget Summit. Just would that help facility owners release their grasp, loosen their grasp on this data, the data?
That's a great question. I think it could go either way, really. I don't know how comfortable anybody would be to just openly broadcast
What are you afraid of?
damage and getting
So,
somebody
so
hurt.
you're afraid if you share the data, there will be more damages?
It could be used, like I said, you have, the folks in this room are great excavators. They're doing everything they can to be responsible excavators, right? But you still have the element out there of it's almost the Wild West. You have the smaller operations, the folks that are uneducated about the one-call laws and excavation safety, and they cut corners. There's complacency. So that's the thing that you have to try and guard against.
I'm trying to understand, what scenario are you afraid of? Are you afraid of someone's going to take all your maps, take all the maps of other utility owners, and then say, oh, I know exactly what's here and where it is, and forget the 811 system, I'm just going to dig?
Yep, that's exactly what we're afraid of.
Does anyone else think that's going to happen?
It does happen.
Yep.
You get out here in the rural community where you got these farmers that got all this nice GIS system, this mapping system and everything else like that. You got a cross-country transmission line. They ask you to come in and mark that. First thing they do with their tractor, they turn on their map, they drive right down the center of them marks, they put it in their system. That's the last time you hear from them. And then you get a line hit.
So I'm processing this. So it's almost better to keep them in the dark, so they don't know what's where, so they won't.
You don't want to keep them in the dark. You want them to be informed of what's going on there, especially with like a transmission line. Every fence post has got a marker on the end of it. They shave the earth where this pipeline goes, right? It's there. The information's there. But as soon as you put marks down on the ground, these farmers are trying to circumvent, having to wait the 2 days to get the marks on because they got stuff they need to do, right? They got terraces they want to build. They want to put field tile in. So they take that tractor, they do that first locate, they take that tractor, map where that pipeline is, and then they do a risk analysis and say, I think I can get by without having to call this.
I
in.
think you have to be very judicious as to when and to whom you release the maps.
Exactly right.
So if it's the DOT or a design company working for the DOT, you know, if they're going to use it as the first layer before they get into the
Project planning.
the project planning, the subsurface engineering, that would not be a problem. But if any Joe Schmo, a landscaping company calls you and wants to have maps, that's what you have.
Well, what if they just get the maps of the area that they called in the 811 ticket for? So you have to call an 811 ticket, and kind of to Randy's example, you also get maps so that you wait for the marks, and then this is a second or third guide in conjunction with the paint on the ground. So you don't get it unless you call in the 811 ticket, and you only get it for the area that you called in the ticket
That's
for.
a great caveat to it. I mean, it should be required. If you're wanting facility records released to you, you have to have already called in your locates and gotten the locates.
And then there are some states in 811 systems that actually have a ticket for doing just that.
Yeah.
So you guys, so like Summit would be, and let's say you had Safe Harbor, so Summit would be okay with that.
Yeah. And we release our records to individuals that go through the proper channel to attain them. You know, they have to sign agreements with us. They have to go through our legal department to get them, but we'll release them.
There's still opportunity, joint meeting process is a good example where I could call a joint meet, I get the locators for each utility together. As the excavator, I can review with the locator the maps. Now, do you get to walk away with those? No, but you'll have an understanding of what you might be up against with me as a locator with access to the records, helping you understand what's going to be in conflict with said follow-up locates to be completed, but then you'll still have that resource. Hey, I remember you talked about this critical facility on First and Elm. Can you come back out, give me more information? So I think there's still a mechanism. Again, is it going to help the homeowner putting a pool in their backyard? No. But for the folks that need that added information for those larger projects, is it something that could be helpful? Yes. Is it a backyard type locate? Probably not. But again, I think it's a tool that's still out there that can be harnessed when needed in the absence of what hopefully someone would like to see potentially in the future. And by the way, already in development by some in other areas of the country and outside the United States.
All right, thank you. So in the new SB 133, if I recall, there's a clause that says excavators must report unmarked facilities to the 811 center. Is that correct?
Yes.
What's the 811 center doing with that information right now?
Well, that when they call in an unmarked facility, they're doing an incorrect locate, and that notification goes out to them utilities. They annotate which utility did not mark. We send that notification back out, or they call us and we'll reach out to that utility to help out whatever we can do.
And it really determines whether it's incorrect locate or a no response as well.
Absolutely.
If that mark is not there, we also, through our system, the excavators, and I applaud the excavators who do their due diligence to go no response, incorrect locate. Because then that comes back into our system, it's documented with positive response. We reconnect with the utility and say, hey, what's the deal here? But likewise, and sometimes that comes up with a utility that did not show up on the ticket, which starts to bring in struggles of abandoned facilities and things like that, or private facilities. Actually ends up we came across one fairly recently where there was an unmarked active utility in the right-of-way that was very short, but it turned out to be privately owned and needed to be in our system, and that's how it got discovered.
There's a lot of lagging mapping with all the fiber
Absolutely.
going in.
Yep.
Fiber operators
Yes.
are going in, and some of that mapping is not hitting the call center system for weeks and months at a time. We'll find entire parts of municipalities that have not yet had a new fiber operator even mapped yet.
And to clarify that, I don't have maps of where everybody's stuff is at. All I have is a notification map. You tell me as the utility, here is where my stuff is. If an excavation's called in here, please let me know. It's the utilities that own the maps, that own the more accurate information of where facilities are located.
Coming from the hydrovac side, again, when we discuss unmarked utilities, oftentimes we don't know that they're unmarked until they are hit. That's another reason why I would love to see hydrovac in the one call system. That way, everybody has full clarity, full visibility of what's going on. I kind of liken it to, you wouldn't send an equipment operator out to move a bucket next to an overhead line with their eyes closed. But we're asking companies and utility owners to trust that people are going to not hit things with their eyes closed.
So, Randy, you said something that was interesting just now. You said, I don't have the maps, right? I just have the polygons and whatever. And I just Googled, so Missouri 811, back then it wasn't 811, Missouri One Call was set up in 1986. Mm-hmm. So that was, 40 years ago. And technology is very different and all that. So maybe you should have the maps. I'm just thinking out loud here, right? Maybe the 811 centers should have the maps and should be the central repository of the maps. And then when someone calls in regarding an unmarked facility, you can update the maps. I'm just, like I said, thinking out loud. Like, is there a potential? Is there a role here, given new technologies, new data? A lot of technologies that didn't exist 4 years ago: GPS, cell phones, smartphones, laptops, cloud computing. Maybe there's a bigger role for Missouri 811 and other 811s around the country.
Well, definitely, I would think that would be a topic it's worthy of discussion, not only for Missouri, but nationwide. Mm-hmm. If anybody was in the prior panel, a comment that I made in there is that in my opinion, right now, the notification system, if I can call it that, is going through a metamorphosis. In 1984, when the law started getting written, and then Missouri One Call came about in 1985, it was a different world. It was the notification center. And as the notification center, which is what we are identified as in the law, the notification center, it's awesome. But excavation, 1985, how many feet per day could you go? 2025, how many miles per day can you go? Locators, it's still a time-intensive, labor-intensive process that can't go that fast. The rights-of-ways are getting more and more crowded. We're looking at copper wire in the ground, and some telecoms are going, it's not mine. And I wonder about the question of, like, when will this fiber we're slamming in the ground now no longer become the cool technology, and we're going, not mine. And then we get all this other abandoned facility, inactive facilities in the ground that suddenly don't belong to anybody. So I'm probably starting to stray off on it. So it's an interesting concept. This metamorphosis I speak of is the state notification centers are becoming more involved in the bigger picture. As Missouri 811, and each one of the states, there's apples and oranges. They're operated differently. There's different state laws. There's different amounts of activity. Most of them are similar to Missouri. Missouri 811, we are a not-for-profit. I am not the Missouri Department of Notification. Do not get one dime from the government. All this is paid for by my utilities. They pay for every bit of this through this system. And now this system is really getting stressed with more expectations upon it. When something occurs, those were TV reporters, who's one of the first people they call? This guy, wondering, didn't you know that that gas line was there? No, I'm just the notification center. But in the essence of that, and coming back to your question, Jimmy, I think the states are going to have to take a more of a comprehensive interest in the greater penumbra of what is going on. What's happening before the ticket, what's happening after the ticket. And in that interest, communication, education, training, new tools is becoming more of an interest. So the question that's come up that Jimmy presented is, should the notification centers hold the maps? I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if that would improve the system.
I would
If
say-
you give me inaccurate maps, is it any better if I'm holding on to them?
And outdated maps. I would think the way to go is actually for the maps to be in the cloud. The state of the technology now for utilities is that all GIS systems now, just about as soon as a new gas line is mapped, the rest of the people in the company, the locators, can see it because the maps are in the cloud someplace.
Yeah, so when we say map, I think placement information is maybe somewhat more relevant than saying, do I really want someone to know there's an 18-inch mop line out there? Probably not. But if I gave you some center line information to say you should know that there's this thing there owned by such and such, is that useful information? Absolutely. Unfortunately, very limited number of folks so far that might have that. And then again, you still have the issue of things like services and such that might not be mapped to that degree. The other problem that even we have as contract locators is even when that information is given to maybe a said call center, if I give you that center line information, but then you add a 1,200-foot buffer on there, well, what did I really give you? I mean, now anything that's within 1,200 feet of your center line, I'm going to get notified that it's there. So maybe there's a compromise to say, how do I give you a center line or give you location information without necessarily giving you, hey, where's my critical valves? Where's the things that I find most at risk from a security perspective that I can't release, that I can at least give someone location information to put you at risk or at notification that there's something here. And on risk, one of the things when we talk about catastrophic that kind of goes back to the concern for how people use the map is oftentimes a lot of operators will actually indicate if it's a critical facility, and excavators need to heed those warnings that this is different. And that might be gas, it could be electric, it could be phone. So making sure when you do see those, that's one of those indicators that this is where catastrophe could happen. So utilizing that information as well.
So the way that the system with Missouri 811 is now, I have the ability to read. If Summit Gas gives me the ability to read their maps, then I've got them, even though I'm not necessarily holding them on a server myself. And I think it's probably a better service to the utility and to the excavator if Summit changes something in their map and it just automatically changes what I'm transmitting. That's probably in the long run a better service to the utilities and the excavators rather than I actually storing or holding the information.
All right, I have one final question. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? Please come up. Oh, all right, come up and I'm gonna ask my question. So if you could mandate one non-negotiable rule tomorrow or, law or whatever that would have the biggest impact on preventing the next catastrophe, what would it be?
Pre-con meetings and have all of the interested parties involved with it. Have the utility operator there, have the locating company there, have the contractor there.
This is for all tickets or just projects or what?
I think it should be for projects, definitely. For somebody burying a tree in their yard, I don't think that's necessary. But definitely, if you're going to have any type of project going, I think that it should be mandatory that you have a pre-con.
Anyone else?
I mean, this is gonna be an unpopular decision, but unless you had said confirmed positive response of completion of your scope of work, don't dig. You might not be happy with the timing of it, you might not be happy that it's not what the time frame that you expected, but in the end, you'll at least know that everyone's been provided or given you the information to whatever degree they said it's gotta be provided to you before you excavate.
And I really applaud a lot of the excavators who won't dig until they're.
Much
they know.
appreciated. Again, and we can concern ourselves with the outcome, the aftermath, all that later, that's understood. But in the interest of making sure that we preserve your own safety and those that are living around wherever you're working, if you can't get positive confirmation that that work area is complete for that specific utility or those utilities in conflict, don't dig.
Are you gonna pay for my downtime and delays?
No.
Okay. So you want me to stand around and wait until you get to my ticket?
Again,
And
it would be a matter of, we don't know necessarily starting out what the delay even is, right? Is it a systemic issue? Is it something else? By the way, are you gonna pay me for the 15 miles of locating I did that you didn't really need because you didn't do the fiber work? So we can go back with those things, but we won't. My point being is the interest of making sure we keep everybody safe and preventing that catastrophe. If you don't have the information, don't dig.
all right, we have a question from our audience. Please state your name, company, what you do, and then your question.
So my name's Chad Lavoie. I'm actually the safety director for Kissa Construction in Kansas City, large excavator. So I'm really manage risk and safety with our people. I have one comment, but my question is that everything you guys have talked about is all about strategy and tactics, right? The pieces that we put in place. The real key element that I think we're missing is people. You guys have all talked about people, but we've talked about the strategy and tactics to get to where we need to go. How do we incorporate the people into that? And my comment is I would love to see this panel expand to having an excavator, an operator, or an owner sit up here and talk about the white knuckling that they do digging every day. Whether the locates are incorrect or not, those are the guys doing the work, putting facilities in the ground, and we're a sewer and water group. So all our stuff goes below everything you guys are talking about. So the people is my question. How do we engage with the people? You talk about pre-construction meetings, and that's great. But we all have to have quality people. We all know how busy and how many things are being put in the ground today and how much more that makes your all's jobs more difficult. But you got to have good quality people. We face it on our end too. We want good, trained, quality people doing that work. But how do you guys get to that piece? We talk about the strategy and tactics of what is needed, communication, coordination, whatnot.
I'm trying to understand your question. Do you mean like workforce getting people?
It is
or
workforce.
Do you mean communication again, connecting to?
Yeah, we're talking about the communication coordination piece, but we need, you guys and us need more people, but we need quality trained people, in my opinion, that really care about the job they're doing, because that locator putting paint on the ground is absolutely taking some ownership there for our guys that are digging in the ground around those facilities, who are white knuckling and doing the best they can each day as well, right? So how do we work toward that?
Yeah,
with
that
making
is-
sure we have good
That is
quality
an
people.
awesome question. You know, as far as like the notification center, and then I come back to where I say I'm the notification center, but I'm Missouri 811, the hub of damage prevention. So in engaging the people at various levels of this crew, I call them my combat crew, who's out interacting directly with people. We as an organization, we don't just sit there. I'm talking to Missouri Public Utility Alliance, Missouri Rural Water Association, Missouri Association of Natural Gas Operators. I'm relying on my industry partners to help with that connection. Likewise, even Association of General Contractors, Missouri Site Association, Missouri Land Improvement. I'm looking for those excavator engagement to pull them into the same thing, to make sure that we're relaying the same messages and connecting to everybody. I guess I'm hoping for or looking for a trickle down to where it gets to the person who's attending the conference, who then takes it back to the shop and says, yeah, this is how we need this, we need to make this connection, and constantly talking about, like, our staff is willing to visit on site with your company for free to do training exactly what you're specific on. Then there's our marketing thing, and it's always trying to reach out. You may see the TV commercials, and you may have seen the most recent one. We have Governor Kehoe. Has anybody seen the governor's commercial yet? Where we're even working with the legislators. You know, one thing that I would willing to say publicly, when I came in the door 3 years ago, it took me a good year to get most of those people in that dome building in Jefferson City to really understand what this is all about. They're usually just listening to whoever their key component is. And I've had a lot of them thought that I was on their payroll. They say, you're a line item, right? Nope. They did not understand the system. So as far as Missouri 811, we're doing a strong push out through organizations, through legislators, trying to reach the human beings who live in the houses and letting them have that awareness. One of my desires for a law change, talk about damage prevention, and it's probably not going to be introduced this year, maybe next year. I would like to see in Missouri that when you buy or sell property, you buy a house, you sell a business, the seller must tell the buyer to the best of their ability where the private facilities are. And my hope for that is not to generate even more maps, but my hope is for people to go, what's that all about? Huh, what's a private facility? And even through those methods, get more awareness about what this is all involved. So
I'll also take this one because I think you're kind of wanting to come at me this way. It's important. And I think I'll make a comment that I would say first, from a locator perspective, that segment of the industry I would call largely ostracized for a few decades. I would say the advent of the work we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years has started to make people understand more how important that is, right? That person's kind of holding my safety, my production, my profitability. I really need these good people out here. So we do kind of take that to heart to say, which people are we putting out there? Are we getting the best qualified, trained person? Are we going ahead and revisiting those folks to make sure they've got the skills needed to go ahead and serve you? I think that we're also trying to constantly improve both our training. If it's not every year, I'm telling you it's every other year. We're trying to look at how do we improve upon getting better people out there. We're starting to be able to draw better people. Part and credit, I give that to Planet Underground TV, Mike Paralak, those folks who have started to help make people more aware of that position and the importance of that. So those are critical folks that when we're out there, we do understand the significance. Also, how do we get our people more invested in that? We want to teach them that it's not checking a box. This isn't, I did step A, did step B, did step C. Like the kind of thing we let off with while we're out there. Did you just complete the locate, or did you prevent a damage, right? Did you go ahead and just put the paint on the ground, or did you make sure the guy stayed safe? You know, once you take that personal ownership and we can get people to that point, now all of a sudden, instead of just doing your locate, I'm serving you, right? I'm saying, what can I do to make sure you stay safe? When I located, the number one thing I knew when I walked away from that job site is that guy's not getting hurt on my locate today. I took pride in when people downtown would say, hey, where's Curly? Send Curly out. I used to shave my head. And nothing better than to be that locator that says, send that guy to my job site, right? We want everybody with that same feeling, and we want to give them that kind of confidence, not false confidence, but make sure that they've got the skills necessary and we're able to communicate so that you can get that service that you deserve.
Chad, you asked the question, how do we deal with the people? Are you referring to how do we engage the people, or are you referring to the white knuckling that you spoke about of that constant stress every day of your guys?
I think it's collective. I think it's between both sides. And again, I think this panel could really be expanded to include the excavator side, because we all want to defend our positions. And that's what I see and hear from your side, from our side. So how do we talk about the strategy and tactics to make things better, prevent things from happening? How do we engage everybody? Those pre-construction meetings are very important, I agree. but it even starts before then, right? You guys even said that. The engineering side of pre-planning a job, where those facilities are, what our path is and whatnot. And again, I'm not speaking from the operational side, I'm speaking from the safety side to engage everybody together. We talk about what that process should be, but how do we put that into action?
Yeah, I that's awesome, and I'm glad you mentioned. I wish we would have a panel with excavators and owners, and we have 811 here. We have utility owner, we have locators, another 811. I'm not a part of any of these guys. I'm also not a part of you guys on the excavator side. I see ourselves with my company, a hydrovac company, as the middleman between these folks and you guys. So I'm thankful to be on this panel, to field this question for you, and to answer your question, what law would you enact today? I think I can serve both of you guys by saying we should put hydro excavation into the one call system. That way, when you step on site, when your operators step on site, they can see the paint, they can see the line, and they can see everything that's underground without giving away too much information to people that we don't know we're giving it to online, who might want to do nefarious things with a gas line. You can go out there and see everything that you want to see on that map with your own two eyes right then and there. That's what I would do as far as the law that I would enact right now, and that's what I would do to ensure that your employees and everybody else's employees, when they walk out onto that job site every day, they can take a deep breath, relax, and know that they can see everything. And to Randy's point too, we're talking about mental health. I think that goes a long way with mental health. If you can see those utilities before you even start that job, I feel like that gives you a greater sense of calmness and peace that, hey, we might still find something that we don't know about, but we're going to reduce it quite a bit.
And on that note of hydrovac for all, we're going to have to conclude this. Can we get a hand of applause for the panelists? Thank you.